we had an interesting case in the OPD. So basically a 10-month-old male child who presented to us, actually he had now come at 2 years. The initial presentation was at 10 months where he came with severe short stature and development delay. So he came with the grandparents and they said that at 10 months he was not able to roll over. He had not attained the age appropriate milestones, and they gave like there was a history of third degree consanguinity in the parent.
What do you mean by third degree consanguinity?
So initially there can be either cousins and or that's what's in cousins or first degree.
What is first degree?
First degree is like just siblings.
Yeah.
And second degree is like mother's brother or father's that way. Uncle, auntie. Third degree. So initial anthropometry at age of 10 months, he was just 5 kgs with a minus 5.04. This is WHO. Length is 56 centimeters. So length was much more severely affected than the height, and he had a head circumference of 43 centimeters. Now, general examination at that time showed frontal bossing. AF was wide open at 10 months. Genitalia was normal. There was no micropenis or any ambiguity. There was generalized hypotonia. Spine was normal, but there was no noticed nystagmus or any of the visual defects. So, what was the interesting point that he was referred with a TFT report which showed TSH less than 0.01 and T4 was actually 0.
I think this is one of the results that you will very rarely see. And usually, when we say about central hypothyroidism, is it more severe or it is the primary hypothyroidism? What is the dose requirement? Is it more for primary or central?
Primary requires more dose.
Yes, because usually we say there is a TSH independent production of some amount of thyroid. But this seems to tell us that he had such a severe TSH deficiency right from the beginning. So this fellow's thyroid was never able to grow. Now when you talk about thyroid growth, the initial growth of thyroid is basically TSH independent. So he would have had a thyroid which was made, but then the follicular growth requires TSH stimulation. If you have zero TSH, your follicles will die. What would have happened if we had done a scan in the initial?
So initial would have shown thyroid. I mean, ultrasound would have shown thyroid, and uptake scan would have shown thyroid uptake. Sir.
Yes, because if there is no TSH, TSH does what? It causes uptake, sodium iodine, and total. So you will have no uptake. So when we say apparent athyrosis, the most common cause of apparent athyrosis is a TSH receptor blocker. Second is the sodium iodine symptomatic. The third is the TSH receptor problem, basically, per se. So these are because you have got the thyroid gland, but because TSH is not working, you don't have the radioactive iodine uptake. So it looks like an apparent athyrosis. So if you have zero TSH, it will behave like the same. So this child would have had maybe a small thyroid on an ultrasound. You may not even call it apparent because sometimes that may not be picked up. But small on ultrasound and absent of radionuclide scan. This will be the typical presentation.
So, but I just want, he has no TSH, but he still has the receptor. So why would it show athyrosis? In the sense, if you're doing a scan,
if you have no ligand, what will that receptor do? You've got hundreds of vehicles, but you don't have the driver. Your car will be parked there. The TSH receptor is not going to do anything. So either your TSH receptor is not there, it is blocked, or it is not stimulated. It will not have your uptake. Same, physiologically it's the same. So if you have an ACTH deficiency or an ACTH resistance or an adrenal which is gone, all will go the same thing.
So with this peculiar report, he repeated a thyroid profile and it again showed the similar, which was actually low TSH.
Extremely low level. Because even if you talk about congenital hypothyroidism, the athyrosis and all, we don't really see that much undetectable T4 is something which is very, very unusual. So this is like one of the most severe cases you can imagine. So you can see from the child, we don't have the picture.
We have the
picture. So that child that time had a typical, he looked like an absolute, like any of those severe.
Initial we don't
congenital, primary congenital hypothyroidism. He turned out like just a case report.
Yes,
that was discussing of a most severe cretin that somebody would have seen. So this is that typical.
Yes. So this prompted us to look for other pituitary hormones. So initial cortisol was 203. So now we have cortisol which is less than 300, which is not ideal, sir. But
so what do you think about this cortisol in a 1-year-old child? What time was it done?
That was not mentioned in the
When do you want it to be done?
random cord. In 1-year-old, we don't expect like the base to be
so
set.
Basically, you have to be cautious in terms of cortisol assessment in less than 1. There is no diurnal rhythm which is properly established. So you do anytime. You have to use lower cutoffs. So maybe 100 is okay. So when I was saying 84, I said 84 was more for older children. If you have less than 84, you are very likely to have a difference. At 203, no clinical features, no hyponatremia. I don't think that will be a strong. If you want, you can do a synaptin test, but not clinically required. Prolactin is very, very important. Here, prolactin is normal. So this looks like a isolated TSH deficiency. So what are the causes of isolated TSH?
I will be discussing. That's what my presentation is about. Actually, I want to discuss that. So with this picture, we got an MRI which now showed a small anterior pituitary with normal posterior pituitary, and all other parts of the brain were normal.
So which is logical. You have a child who doesn't have any dysmorphic features, no eye, no ear, no teeth, no hearing, abnormality, everything is normal. So all those structural things are gone. There is no DI, so it has to be a post SX1 thing. There are no spinal, all those things, they are gone. So the only concern would have been that if it is prop1, which still it could be, you would expect that the cortisol level may be normal, now it may evolve later on. And you can also think of prolactin. So prolactin is normal, which is a bit unusual. So whether it could be a POW1 F1. So small pituitary may be the only finding of POW1 F1 that will be there. So still, that will be the most common thing that I think of it.
Now, as you can see, the improvement is height. By just giving thyroid supplementation, his height has improved for 56 minus 7. So that begs the question now forward what?
But he has gained 17 centimeters in 13 months. So I would say wait and watch for the most. He may have a GHD, but why would he gain so much in that period? So better to wait now.
So now coming to the diagnosis.
So what is the cause of his growth failure?
So initially I would say it is severe hypothyroidism.
So if you do GH, IGF-1, IGF-1, what will happen to him?
Now, since his hypothyroid is now settled, that time it would show low, it would not rise appropriately. It would show low levels of GH anyway.
What about IGF-1?
That would also be low. Everything is low. Everything is low in hypothyroidism.
You got all are low. Pan decrease level of the normal production, action, everything will be.
So it would confuse the anyway. It would be low. No point doing it.
Even now, it is good enough response. Let's wait and watch it with the most likely.
The weight is also low.
Yeah.
He's still in a area of malnutrition.
And he's improved a lot. So I think it's better to
wait.
But
the weight, if you go by with the height, I mean, would we say it is malnutrition? I mean, you expect a weight of minus 2.2 when the height is minus 5. We won't expect it to be normal.
I think at this stage, anyway, because GH is not a major contributor to growth. And the fact that he has grown so much, there's no reason to even think of that because he will get confused. At this stage, there's no point doing it. So I'll wait till at least 4 years. Because if he will become normal by then.
So now the question comes, is it isolated TSH deficiency or is it a multiple pituitary hormone deficiency? So now if we just talk about TSH, it is very, very, very rare to be, it is the case reports of 1 in 2 lakh or 1 in 3 lakh it was mentioned. And these are the genes which are involved. So TSH beta, if we can look at all the genes, everything one by one, we can actually rule out. So like TSH beta is neonatal onset, normal PRL is there. But usually pituitary hyperplasia is seen in those individuals. TRH receptor defects has a high PRL levels, and the index case which they saw showed growth retardation, and the child was overweight.
So TRH receptor defects have high PRL.
Yes, I mean they've seen only one male index case and female index case. So in the male,
what does TRH do?
Increases.
Theoretically, it should cause
low prolactin.
But one case you don't even know how it landed at level.
TBL1X was X-linked and it had mild isolated defects. Hearing defects are there. This child's hearing evaluation is actually pending because BERA has to be done. He responds to sound, and his development is improving. Personal language skills also improve. So coming to
IRS score is what?
That is another gene. Not able to show. So the full thing was not there. So in the multiple pituitary hormone deficiency, basically why I'm pointing out towards POU F1, it is a very common defect. Second to prop 1, I would say POU1 comes in. It involves the multiple pituitary hormones such as GH, PRL, and thyroid. And as sir has mentioned, this is the one which presents with severe congenital hypothyroidism, central hypothyroidism, more than any other of the cases. So in this, it is a 7.8% of all MPHDs. It is a tissue-specific transcription factor. It belongs to the POU family. Now, GH, prolactin, TSH beta, and in turn, somatotroph, lactotroph, and thyrotroph cells development is based on this POU F1
Which is the most important, most common cell type in the
GH is the
32 40. Lactotroph will again be 20%. So these three will be like 60% of the entire period. If they become small, the period will become small. It's easy to understand.
So clinical features in this, there is early growth failure, which is in this patient. There is failure to thrive starting in infancy. Intellectual disabilities was definitely present in this child. In POUF1 is neonatal. It can present with early childhood, and it may present with isolated DKHD in POUF1. Central hypothyroidism is severe, so it has two peaks, either in the neonatal period or in the second decade of life. The presence of central hypo is variable, but the severity is very high if it is present. And lastly, imaging. Now, what is important in this case, I would say, is that the hypoplastic which was shown in the MRI in this patient showed hypoplastic MRI with the normal posterior pituitary, which is all present in the POUF1 effects.
What it basically means that your vacuous pouch was formed, it went off from the top, it used that, all that happened. And then there was a signaling deficiency. So this is the classical deficiency.
And of course, prolactin deficiency is variable, but usually it is present from early age group only.
Which is.
So then, with the diagnosis, I would put this child has TSH deficiency, and I would put him as an evolving multiple pituitary hormone deficiency. Regularly follow up for especially features of ACTH deficiency, see a poor oral intake, low mood, lower school performance, and I would POUF1 more than an isolated TSH defect.